About a year ago, Ford CEO Jim Farley literally rocked the automotive world when he announced the brand would be transitioning its electric vehicles from the charging standard currently used in North America, the J1772 plug and the CCS1 plug, to Tesla's plug, or what Tesla called the North American charging standard. And in doing so, get Ford's vehicles access to thousands of Tesla Superchargers, the most prolific and reliable charging network in North America. Now, that access began last week on February 29th, and Ford provided me one of the adapters so I can charge my F-150 Lightning on that day. I have a video on it up here on the channel. I'm going to drop a link in the description. I also requested and was granted an interview with Ford's CEO, Jim Farley, one of only 2 interviews that Jim did during the week of this opening of the Supercharger network for Ford vehicles. And in that interview, coming up next, we're going to discuss charge port location, data sharing, and how Jim convinced Elon to allow Ford to access Tesla Superchargers after they were originally denied. So if you're interested in this topic, you're going to want to hang around for the next 20 minutes. You're not going to want to miss this one. Before we jump into the interview, let me provide a little more background information for those that aren't really familiar with this topic. Now, after Farley announced that Ford would be transitioning to the North American charging standard, pretty much every other major OEM announced the same. However, they all have slightly different paths to this. Most of the manufacturers have announced that starting in 2025, they would begin to install the North American charging standard inlets on their electric vehicles. Not all of them, some of them, they're going to phase that in. And that's Ford's position also. Starting 2025, they're going to begin to put the ports in their native port on the vehicle. However, until then, these companies still want their vehicles to be able to access Tesla Superchargers, so you're going to have to do it through an adapter, which Tesla is going to manufacture. Actually, they've already started manufacturing them. Now, there's going to be third-party adapters too, and I have some videos out on that, but we're really just going to talk about the Tesla adapter right now, which is what Ford is giving to their customers. You're going to learn a little bit about how that came about in the video here today. So, starting in 2025, many electric vehicles are going to have the Tesla as the native port. But until then, for the companies that have this deal with Tesla, you have to use an adapter in order to access the network. And as of now, Ford is the only company that is allowed to access the network. It's going to probably happen one at a time. From what I understand, Rivian might be next. After that, General Motors, and then Volvo and Polestar. I don't know about the rest of the companies after that, but it seems like that's going to be the, I guess, the order in which that these companies get access to the Tesla Supercharger network. But they'll all need to use an adapter until their vehicles begin to ship with the native NACS port, which is going to be the earliest will be 2025. Okay, I just wanted to provide a little bit of background data for those that aren't familiar with this subject. Let's jump into the interview with Jim. State of Charge is powered by Qmerit. After I've helped you decide which electric vehicle charging equipment you're going to buy, follow the link in the description of my videos and let the EV charging installation professionals at Qmerit install it. Okay, well, we're here with Jim Farley. Jim, thanks so much for coming back on. I really appreciate it. Let's jump right into this.
You got it.
So first off, I know this had to be a tough decision. You know, you must have toiled over this for a while, because I know some people were going to view you transitioning to the NACS connector as, you know, capitulating to Tesla. You know, we knew that was going to be some people's view of it. And I know you've always said this was about the customer more than the brand, but could you tell us, you know, what led to the decision? Was it the Charge Angels that you guys had came back and said, look, this just isn't working, you need to do something better? Was it customer feedback? How did you come to the decision to be the company to say, look, it's just not working, we're going to be the first ones to come out and make this transition?
I see. I mean, I think personally, the moment I realized that I had to scratch the itch was I took a vacation to Lake Tahoe with my family. We drove back to Monterey, and my kids kept saying to me, Dad, there's another Supercharger network. Oh, that's the Tesla charging place. And the reason why I found that out is because we stopped twice. And the chargers were at like Harris Ranch or places where you could stop to get something to eat, and the kids were, just wanted a bio break, frankly, or go to the bathroom or get some candy or something. And when we were there, they were like, Dad, we could charge, we could top up, because we almost didn't make it back to Monterey. And I just realized, wow, like that is a big advantage for them. I had always intellectually understood, but I didn't really understand it, as a consumer. And when I got back, I talked to Doug Fields, who had been at Tesla, and I said, what do you think? Like, would they even be open to it? And so he had contacts that he had worked with, so he called and they said, nah, it's not very interesting to them. And then we just kept talking about it, and the data started to come in about how many broken chargers there were, what the wait times, and the real game changer on the data side was when we saw the first time connect data, which for the kind of third party sites is around 70% is the best, and we're, I think, the best. And that was like 70% of the time, the customer could just pull up, plug in, figure out their payment, and then everything would work fine. But 30% of the time, it wouldn't work, and the person would have to take the plug out, put it back in, or reinitialize, start over again. And that was shocking to us. And Doug was not surprised. Coming from Tesla, he knew that Tesla's internal target was like 98% or 99% first time charged. So I guess it was, personal experience, and then more curiosity, and then talking to Doug, then seeing the data coming off the vehicles and knowing that our first charge percent was not competitive with Tesla. It became pretty clear pretty quickly that, we could continue to kind of be arrogant and keep our head in the sand, or we could really call them and say, look, we really want to do this. And that's what happened. So I think I actually reached out to Elon personally and said, I know you're a mission build company. I know you don't know much about me, but we're number 2 in the EV market now. This was like 2 years ago. And, if you're mission driven and the number 2 player, albeit a fraction of yours, comes to you and says, like, we'd be willing to switch formats in our future products, as long as you would give access in the interim with an adapter, are you game? Because for us, it seems weird that if you're mission driven, why you would say no. And he thought about it, and then he's like, yeah, I think we could probably make that work, Jim. And then, then it took I think it took 2 weeks to get the contract done, which was pretty world record for us. And it's not an easy thing, right? I mean, the tech has to work, the software has to work, software has to validate the adapter is a legit adapter. We got to get the adapter made and tooled up and scaled. It was a pretty big project. Both teams had to be committed to making it happen. And we picked, so I'd say, yeah, it was a bit of an unnatural act on the surface of it. But as soon as we saw the customer's experience, there wasn't much choice. But in the end, it kind of had to come down to Tesla being willing to do it.
Yeah, 100%. And, it's fascinating to me to hear that that's how it came. I would have imagined that you crunched, months of data from the charging angels and fielded thousands of customer complaints and just said, you know what, this is the breaking point. But the breaking point was your personal experience driving on a road trip. And I wish more engineers and people in this field would do that same thing, because everything looks great on paper, but when you but then you go do it. And could you imagine if 30% of the times you went to a gas station, the pump didn't work?
Right.
There'd be riots.
You'd be incensed. There'd be politicians going, I expect this to work in my district, Yeah, totally.
Yeah. So
totally.
Yeah. So and on that same line,
but I would say the only thing I would just change a little bit about that is that Doug, I really trust Doug Fields. He really helped me and Marin get to this decision, because he's really a unique guy, and he knows what he's talking about technically. Yeah.
Yeah. So listen, one of the funny things that I live and breathe charging, and when you made this announcement, I remember laying in bed that night and saying, I can imagine what the boardrooms in all the other companies are doing right now. Everybody's probably working overnight. They're throwing fits because they all have to follow Jim now. They have to. They have no choice. You made the decision for all these other companies. Going into this, did you expect, or did you get any criticism from the other brands? Did Mary Barra call you up and start yelling at you? I know it sounds funny, but that was what was going through my mind.
Nah, it's so funny. Me too, by the way. No one called, but let's put it this way: we were not surprised when the other shoe fell. Let's put it that way. We weren't surprised. I mean, there's some truisms in our industry. You don't ever want to be on the wrong side of customers.
Yep. No, it makes all the sense in the world, and I'm glad you did it. So let's tackle a couple possible issues. Charge port location. We know that there's some issues. I have a Ford F-150 Lightning, and it's difficult for me to reach the cable. And I know the Tesla V4s are going to have longer cables, but where we are right now, it's challenging. I've got to pull right up to the bollard or the station and try not to hit it, and then it barely reaches. Is there any chance that this decision to switch to NACS might make you reconsider charge port location on future vehicles?
Absolutely.
Okay, that was a quick answer.
I mean, that's why I wanted to say at the beginning, and maybe it was too subtle, but the bigger decision longer term is going to be that we switch standards. Mm-hmm. I mean, right now it's everything you said. It's we're working around the reality of the situation, but when we looked at the data, it was more how much better. Is there cord design less damageability? Mm-hmm. What is this software's performance on first time to connect? All that stuff we looked at, and we made we had talked about inside the company for many times. Look, this is a better standard. Mm-hmm. And actually, if you go back to the intro, I said that to Elon when we did our Twitter Live or X Live, whatever it was called back then. I said, we really like the technology. I think most people misinterpreted that. I think they thought I was talking about the charging locations or mm-hmm. something. That's not what I was talking about. I was actually talking about the tech itself, the software, the cord, the reliability of the cord. If you drop it, all of that. And I really mean it. Our team, Doug and the team, really like the tech itself. And so when we say we're going to make this change, yesterday was a huge day, but that's not the really big change. The really big change happens when we switch standards. And that will, of course, include a relook at our location.
Okay, and talking about that, you had said you're going to begin in 2025. Now, it's not like you're going to snap your fingers and all the EVs you're selling in 2025 are going to have the J3400 inlet, because I would imagine you're going to phase that in. Correct me if I'm wrong.
Yes.
Are you able to say what might be the first vehicle to come with the native J3400 inlet?
Yes.
I'd love to hear it.
Oh, you're asking me to tell you which car will be the first one?
Yeah, I said, are you able to say which one is the first vehicle?
I am able to physically say that. Like, I could say it and you would understand it perfectly.
I think you're giving me the runaround, Jim.
I can't tell you what the vehicle is, but I could if I'm physically capable of telling you.
Okay, you can't whisper it, maybe? No one will hear it.
Dude, I love you, but I can't go that far, man.
Okay.
I don't want to give, honestly, of course, honestly, our next gen products, I think, are going to really surprise people. I do not want to give my competitors 1 day of forewarning.
Mm-hmm. Understood. You promised me when we were down in Blue Oval City, I won't say promise, you told me that, that I'm going to be blown away when I see next gen stuff and T3 and everything. So I'm looking forward to getting down there again as you get closer and getting maybe a little taste of what's going on. So, okay, we'll move to the next thing. Tell me about your decision to offer the free adapter, because I remember when you announced this back on CNBC, I immediately reached out to Ford Comms, to my contacts, and said, is this true? You're going to be giving these away to all your customers? And they were kind of like, I think maybe Jim might have spoke out of, and they're backpedaling and everything. So now, Jim, all my followers reached out to me. They're like, it's true, we're getting these adapters. And I said, no. I reached out to my contacts. They said Jim might have misspoke. And then it comes back and oh yeah, we are giving them away. And I looked bad. So what went on with that? Tell me, did you promise something that wasn't agreed on, but then since you said it, you had to come forward and do it? What happened with the free adapter?
No, I told my team it's going to be free.
Okay. Well, it got back to me that we think, hold off, because we're not sure that's going to happen.
Yeah, no, there was a debate. There's certainly a debate in the company, but sometimes as a CEO, you need to resolve debates. Mm-hmm. And from the first day, I said it's illogical for us as a brand to do this and charge people for the adapter. Now, we may have production ramping issues, so we'll have to make some choice. We have to have some auction system on who gets the first one or the second one or the 10,000th one. Yeah. And but there was absolutely a debate. There's a lot of people. The company said, you know what? There's a lot of people won't use them, so that'll be waste. Someone who charges at home and goes 10 miles a day, and super rich, but I was just like, no, as a brand, every EV customer at Ford is going to buy another EV from us if the product's good and the experience is good. So this is in a way, this is loyalty investment for the next cycle of product. Mm-hmm. Why would I charge someone? Let's say it was $400 or whatever it's going to be. Why would I charge them that and then not saying, they gave it to me for free? They really want me to have a good ownership experience. When we launched Mach-E, we must have said 10 times, the real proof of the pudding is, will we do good OTAs? Will we send software to the car? Will people get Blue Cruise, a new version of Blue Cruise? Will the 0 to 60 time get better? Will the range get better over time? We always said, this is going to be what we do differently than the past 120 years. We're going to make the car better every day. And I personally felt like it would be really weird to charge a relatively modest amount of money for something where people go, you know what? Ford did the right thing. I'm going to stick with Ford. Yeah, that makes sense. It was just a judgment, and there's always debates in big companies, and frankly, I never waver from that. I have to say, there are many times where I have changed my mind about a decision, or, I second-guessed myself. This was not one of them. I knew from the very day we did this that it was imperative that we do this for free.
Yeah, well, it went you got a lot of, say, street cred for doing this, because the community is very happy that you're getting it for free. And again, you're putting the pressure on your competitors, because now how does your competitor say, oh no, you got to give us $300 for it, and it makes you look really good. So
yeah, and I mean that's why we did we worked really hard. I mean, maybe no one will notice, but we worked really hard on the packaging of the adapter and the message, and this is a product launch for us. This is not a small thing. This is like a mini product launch for us.
Yeah, I like your little handwritten note on the inside of the box. That was a really nice touch.
We're a family company. Do you have any idea how much when I went on my road trip, I'm so thankful for the people to buy a Ford in the EV world. So, that's authentic. That's authentic.
Well, in that light, talking about people that buy Fords, we've talked about recent bit of a slowdown with electric vehicle sales, or maybe they're not selling as quickly as some of the predictions are. Do you think that this whole topic is actually part of that? Because I've had some of my followers say, Tom, I was going to buy an EV from X brand, Ford, another brand or whatever, but you know what? I'm going to wait till 2025 because I want it to come with the native J3400 plug. So do you think that's, I actually do. I believe that's part of what maybe is slowing sales down a little bit now. Do you think that's part of it?
Could be. I don't, that's a good question. Personally, I think it's more affordability, because we're still growing a lot. So Lightning and Mach-E, the sales keep growing, and they're 2 or 3 years old, which is not normally what happens in the car business. So there are more customers out there, but the prices that we need to clear that kind of growing volume, and the growth isn't as high as we thought, but the prices are coming down. And so I really think when you look at that, the people who are buying now are different than 2 years ago. And they're considering hybrid. They have more difficulty understanding the benefits of not going to a gas station. And, they're not like you and me that kind of instantly knew, hey, the acceleration is going to be great. Hey, you don't have to go to a gas station. We're close to it. Early adopters.
Yep.
A lot of other people, they're just like, maybe, not right now. But, you want to sell one? Okay, you better make it the same price as a hybrid.
Yeah. So listen, I know we're up against my time limit here, but I really appreciate your time. I have one more question for you, and this came from my followers. I've had quite a few people ask me about this. Data. Does Tesla get to share your customers' data, like Ford customers that plug into the Superchargers?
No.
No. Okay. Well, that was a quick one, and I was going to say if they did, was it anonymous? But no, they don't. It's you. Yeah, that all stays in Ford.
Only scenario is if they use the Tesla charging app.
Right. Yeah. Exactly. But if you go through the Ford Pass app and with plug and charge and you plug in. That's all yours.
Yeah. I would have not done the deal over that one. That's a deal breaker.
Okay. All right. Listen, Jim Farley, thanks so much for coming on. I really appreciate it. It's always really a pleasure talking to you. Hopefully this won't be our last conversation. Thanks a bunch. This has been great, and congratulations. I've said it and I've written on Inside EVs and said it on our podcast many times that you are single-handedly responsible for pulling the industry ahead in North America, in my opinion. And, I'm not blowing smoke. This is the truth. Somebody had to put their foot down and say, look, this isn't working. We need to do better. And you were the guy that did it. And I want to thank you for that, because I think it's going to be difficult the next few years, this transition, but the industry is going to be better in 5 or 6 years once the dust settles. And thank you for doing this.
That's my responsibility. That's why I have the privilege of working at Ford and being in my position to do the right thing. And I'm lucky I have a chairman, Bill Ford, who supports that. And I have people like Doug Fields around me who encourage us to make those decisions. We're always going to have a debate. Hey, should we charge it? But as far as like True North, we know what True North is. You know, I want you to be on that trip and all the people that pay attention to you and you're on that trip and you know, you have an option that you didn't have and it's a better experience. I mean, that's a no-brainer for me. But I have to give some credit to Tesla. They worked hard with us, and you know, we still have work to do. You know, we have to update all the software and all the Supercharger network, and so we have more work to do. But I say this is like maybe we're changing as an industry.
Okay. Well, listen. With that, thank you, Jim. Oh.
Health. Yep.
Yeah, you broke up there. I lost you for a minute. I thought you were done talking. Sorry.
No problem. I just want to say I think it was. I think, you know, this was like what good looks like in our industry.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Well, listen.
Thank you.
Thanks for coming on, Jim. That's fantastic, and best of luck.
You too. All the best. Thanks a lot, Tom. Bye.
Bye. Okay, well, I hope you enjoyed that as much as I did. I love talking to Jim. This is the second time I had the opportunity to do a one-on-one interview with him. And, you know, in addition to just being a great CEO, he seems like he's a down-to-earth, regular, relatable guy. And, you know, we need more of those at the top of corporations. And seemed like he was brutally honest here today, other than not telling me which Ford vehicle was going to have the NACS inlet first, but I understand why you can't release that. But I tell you, we learned a lot here today. I know I learned a lot. It was interesting to hear that the real deciding factor to having him make this decision that he's going to try to let Tesla give them access to the Supercharger network was his road trip. And that's fascinating to me because I know Ford has this whole team of charge angels out there that go to all the DC fast chargers and they report on their uptime and how reliable they are and the whole charging experience. And we know he has customers reaching out to Ford and complaining that sometimes they're having difficulty on road trips. And heck, I mean, I've heard stories of people returning their electric vehicles because their road tripping, you know, instances were so bad that they just felt like they had to get out of the EV and get a combustion vehicle again. So, and I know Ford knows this. But it all came down to Jim's experience with his family on a road trip. And it doesn't surprise me. And I think, you know, all these engineers and decision makers in these companies should be forced to go on road trips and see firsthand what it's like out there. You know, and I just completed a 1,000-mile road trip from New Jersey to Florida. And honestly, it was a great experience. And I can't complain one iota, and I used the Electrify America charging network all the way down. But that's unusual for me. When I go on road trips, there's typically at least one sort of a problem, and I know a lot of people just don't have the patience. They just don't want any problems. And this transition to the North American charging standard is going to be a great long-term solution, I think, for everybody. But it was interesting to hear that that was the straw that broke the camel's back, that this road trip made him realize that the customer experience isn't what he wants, so he was going to try to improve that. We also learned about how that free adapter came about, and it seems like Jim had his fingerprints all over that he thought it was really important, and he put his foot down and said, no, we're going to give these away to customers that want them. Learned about data sharing. Tesla doesn't get Ford customer data at all as long as you authenticate your charging session through the Ford Pass app. Now, if you use the Tesla app, which you can do also, then Tesla gets your data. But if you don't want Tesla to have your data, go through the Ford Pass app with plug-in charge. It's an automatic authentication and processing. You just plug in and you walk away and it charges the vehicle. And then Tesla doesn't get any of your Ford data. But to me, the most surprising thing that I learned from this interview was when Ford originally approached Tesla through Doug Field and asked, you know, would we be able to do this? They were rebuffed. They were said, no, this isn't something that we're interested in. And, you know, Tesla had always seemed to make it sound like they'd be open to letting anyone use their network, you know, and that's why they opened the North American charging standard. They want everybody to use their connector, come use our network. But from what we're getting from Jim, that isn't what happened here. They were told no at first. And it took a phone call from Jim to Elon to convince him. And even Elon initially gave some resistance. So that's surprising to me. And I don't have any reason to doubt Jim here, but it seemed like, Tesla just didn't, welcome them with open arms. There was a little bit of a resistance there, but ultimately Jim was able to convince Elon, and that just set in place the dominoes for the entire industry. And I've said this before, once one company did this, the rest of the industry had to do it because they'd have such an incredible competitive advantage over everybody else. And we saw that. GM was next, and I forget the order, but everybody now is signed on. And one automaker at a time is going to get access first to an adapter and then start putting the charge port natively on their vehicles. I would imagine by sometime around 2026, 2027, maybe 2028 even, because some of the existing models, until they get a refresh, they won't have that inlet. But by the end of this decade, for sure, all new electric vehicles sold in North America will have the NACS inlet, or it's actually, technically, it's the J3400 inlet, but we could discuss that at great length in another video. Listen, I hope you enjoyed this video. I certainly enjoyed talking to Jim, and I hope you learned a little bit about how this whole thing came about. Listen, if this is your first time here at State of Charge, please hit that subscribe button and ring the notification bell so you don't miss any upcoming electric vehicle news and reviews. And as always, thanks for watching.